Hey friends, fans, and enemies. This week, I'm doing a repeat of a very special episode with an amazing human. And I'm doing this because I just launched my new ebook. It's called Inversions for All, and it is about aerial technique when you're trying to go upside down in the air. If you want to check it out, you can go to www.theartistathlete.com and pick up your copy today. And because you're tuning into the podcast, use the offer code PODCAST for 10% off. Now, let's get to the episode. New episodes coming next week. You're listening to The Artist Athlete, episode 23. This podcast is dedicated to CIRCUS. It's a place for professionals in the industry to share their stories, viewpoints, and information, and a place for outsiders to get a sneak peek into our world. Hey friends, fans, and enemies, I'm Shannon McKenna, and I'm the host of the Artist Athlete podcast and the founder of theartistathlete.com. I'm recording this episode from my bunk in Costa Rica right now, or the intros and the outros anyway. So there may be a little bit of excess noise. I would love to apologize for the coconuts falling on the roof and the fan whirring and the monkeys chirping, but for some reason I just can't. If you've been listening to the podcast for a while, or if you're a podcast binger, you probably know by now that this is the part of the intro where I ask you to support the Artist Athlete podcast by going to patreon.com/theartistathlete. If you are an avid friend, fan, or enemy, but not a Patreon subscriber, why not? You can give as little as $1 a month, but if you give $5 or more, you get access to episodes and extra content from interviews early, a super cool Artist Athlete sticker, and my undying love and affection. Go to patreon.com/theartistathlete and subscribe today. My guest today is contortionist and contortion instructor Serchmaa Byamba. As a young girl, Serchmaa was inspired by a contortion act she watched on Mongolian national TV. She began her performance career as a state-sponsored artist in Mongolia in 1989, when Mongolia was still a communist country. After the Mongolian Revolution of 1990, she was free to work with whatever company she wanted and chose to perform with a traditionally ethnic Mongolian folk art troupe, following her belief that contortion is not just a circus act, but an ancient cultural art form. She was, and still is, the only Asian ever to be invited to participate in the European Youth Circus Festival, where she won the Golden Elephant Award and was named the Golden Girl of Contortion. In 1998, Serchmaa moved to the U.S. She toured with a circus for a year and then decided to stay close to her family in San Francisco, California. After settling in, Serchmaa started performing as an independent contractor and even appeared in some movies, including Minority Report. Serchmaa teaches private and group contortion classes in San Francisco. Her age range of student is from 5 to 35 years. They perform in many local and international shows and circuses, and they train hard every day. Here's my interview with Serchmaa Byamba.
So my name is Serchmaa Byamba. I came from Mongolia. I used to do contortion. I worked as a professional contortionist for 25 years.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
So now I'm retired. I teach mostly Mongolian traditional contortion style of stretching and contortion classes in San Francisco.
How old were you when you started contortion?
When I started, I was 8 years old.
You were 8? Mm-hmm. And why did you start?
My mom used to be contortionist. The first person I saw was my mom, who's like stretching at home. So that's how I discovered this art. but I used to just follow my mom, and when she stretches, I will play around a little bit. I was very young, and I asked her if she can teach me more, but she said no. So she's like, no, it's not for you, and I'm not interested to teach right now. We can just stretch, use it as a stretching, like do it as exercise, but I'm not going to teach you. So I never really asked, but when I was like 5, close to 6 years old, I remember that day, like I was watching TV, watching show, and I watched one contortion act. So that was my like point, like it just really shocked me in a very beautiful way. I saw her contortion and just like inspired me so much. Even though I was so young, I remember that day clearly now.
Wow.
And then after I watched her, she's my idol contortionist my whole life.
What's her name?
Her name is Ladang Ingtitik. She's honored artist in Mongolia, and she's been my idol for years. She's still performing, she's still like teaching, very active, and we just recently did one show together. Last year, November, we did the show because I've been retired for 8 years. I had my own reason to retire, and we've been contacted, of course, like not all the time, but we always
keep in
follow
touch.
each other,
Sure.
keep in touch. But one time when I meet her in Mongolia, she suggested me if we can do one show together. So that day I said, like I didn't really take it because I was retired. I wasn't practicing that much, you know. And I said no, but she convinced me to do it after like a second meet. She said, because I am her first student, she considered me as her first student because she found me. and
Wait, I have to hear this story.
Yeah.
So you saw her on TV.
Yeah.
And your mother wouldn't teach you.
Yeah. And then, you know, I saw her act and I told my mom, like, I want to meet this contortionist. I want to go to the city because I was living in countryside. My mom was an army doctor. We lived in army base.
Okay.
So it was a countryside.
So she was an army doctor
Yeah.
and a contortionist.
She practiced at home, but she
Okay.
used to do contortion.
Okay.
And she stopped doing it after like she graduated her high school and she quit. She followed her career. She became a doctor and then she became an army doctor and start working at the army bases.
And my understanding in Mongolia is this is fairly common. Like contortion is something that a lot of kids just do.
Yes.
Yeah,
It's
like
very
ballet or
popular
something,
art.
yeah?
Very popular, also very respected art in Mongolia.
Ah.
And lots of people take it very serious and very like ethnic style of art.
Yeah.
Lots of people know this contortion is a circus art, but in Mongolia it's traditionally started ethnic art, you know. So I told my mom I want to go to city and she still refused, you know. She told me that time, she said, I can't teach you and I don't want you to start this because it's not just a thing you do, you know, you do it, you're using your spine, this art is hard. So if you do it, you have to do it from like a full time. So I cannot support that. And I can't do that. I don't wanna, she basically says she doesn't wanna hurt my feelings or just broke my spirit or anything. She just better not to do it. Because my mom was a single mom and she just cannot support that way. And I didn't ask. And then I started my first grade and then at my school, my first grade teacher asked us, like, at the first year, after school, he's like, we have, like, a school performance in December, you know, we need to start practicing, I want to know who your talents, you know. And I just said, I can do contortion. And I showed her what I saw on TV. I learned some movements from my mom and I just showed to him. He really supported that. And he's like, oh, we should talk to your mom. I want you to start practicing this. Start making your costume too, you know. So, and then right after that talk, we were practicing. He was encouraging me. And then there was a circus performance in town, visiting, tour show. So I went to the show. My teacher knew there was contortionist. He wants to show me and 4 or 5 other girls all together after the show we watched. He wants to take us to meet her and then if she can check it. That's how I met him. When I met that contortion, it was the woman like who I watched on TV.
So your teacher took you, and it was the woman you watched on TV.
Yes, and that's how we met. Yeah, and then she picked me only out of all the girls, and she specifically she called my mom and specifically speak to her, like it is very important for her to support my talent, because she said she's very talented and I really think she can be very beautiful contortionist, you know. That talk was very straightforward, helped my mom.
Yeah.
So my mom was like, after that she started supporting, and I did my first performance with my teacher at this school, and then after that summer I went to city of Ulaanbaatar and start my circus training there. I met my teacher. My teacher's name Tsindayush. She's the legendary teacher.
And she's the woman whose picture is in
my
the
room.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
What was it like to train contortion? How many hours a day? How many days a week? What did you practice? How did you do it?
We do it 6 days a week, and every day at least 2-3 hours. So sometimes if you have added hours, it's almost like 4 hours, but you have to come every day. That's the difference here and back days. Here we are trying. It is really encourages me, also inspires me. Still people are making it and learning. Still it's they're proving and showing it's possible, you know, in a many different way. So back then, also I truly believe this is very hard art because we use our muscles. You know, it's important for the muscle. If you keep using it in a certain way often, that's how it's learn how to function and getting used to it, right? And then you can start using it in a normal way.
Yeah.
Even though we're doing something really extreme, but if you just teach your muscle, a muscle adopts those movements, then it become a more natural to your body.
Yeah.
So it's not really hard if you can do that. That's the method, you know. That's why you have to train every day. You have to practice every day. That's how you learn these things, healthy, natural way. Lots of people, especially my adult students, they can't come every day. They do it when they have spare time. So that's why the progress is slow. That's why we start feeling pain in the muscle. And then they think, oh, contortion hurts. Lots of people say that because your training is not consistent.
Yeah, sure.
That's why your muscle is hurting. But if you can be consistent, if you teach your muscle in the correct way how to function, then it's not painful, you know?
Yeah.
So that's the thing I try to teach people, make them understand. Also I'm trying to be patient with it too, you know, so because even though how much I want my students to train all the time, but it's impossible with their lifestyle, and also the financially lots of students affected by that, and then there's no time. So lots of things affect. So I really understand and respect that. But same time, it's not impossible thing too. That's what I learned here.
Yeah.
You know?
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. So
in Mongolia, is there any government support or funding for the continuation of the art form?
No. That, like, recently I was speaking with the person, who charges entertainment in Mongolia, also for my interview too, you know. So lots of people just found on their own, founding themselves, they work on their own.
Okay.
There's not really support in Mongolia.
Okay.
When we were socialist country, we were like a part of the art.
Yeah.
And basically, it's a little bit hard sounding, but it's true. Like, we're not like on our own. We're basically their workers, you know. So we just have to, like, they train us free, but then after that, you work for them.
Gotcha.
You cannot make decision. You can't. Like,
And when you were a student, was that the case? That you were working for the country as like an artist?
For a while, same direction, under that direction. But in Mongolia, we changed, like, from socialist to capitalist. Yeah. So at that time, everything is like basically collapsed. Yeah. So especially the art in Mongolia. So everyone started losing, and where they need to be also we become more free too. So I I quit from CIRCUS.
Okay.
Basically quit my job and start becoming independent artist. It's not only me. So many of artists did that during that time. And that's how I become independent and start choosing where I can work. And I choose to work with ethnic traditional folk song dance ensemble. I worked with them for a while.
An ethnic traditional dance ensemble?
Instead of circus.
Oh, wow. In Mongolia?
In Mongolia,
yeah.
And I traveled with them for many countries. And the reason I choose that, I really loved the contortion art related for many years history in Mongolia, even with meditation, chanting with monks. And in history, we hear stories like people used to do in 20s too, like people just do contortion movements in the countryside, like who's the nomads, nomad lifestyle. I've seen pictures, men doing contortion in the middle of the sheep and hoarding them, So it's very interesting to me. And then lots of traditional dance movements used to inspire me too. So I really think Mongolian traditional contortion style is related with traditional dance movements a lot too. Because of that, I think we're a little bit different than any other circus because it's very art related, dance related. It's like the translation is very different than the circus traditional contortion acts, So I really think that's why we are very popular.
Yeah, I've heard that there are definitely companies that specifically go to Mongolia to get artists from Mongolia because that's where it's the most, I don't know, pure or the most
because I really believe it's art related. We don't just do the trick, It's like every movement you translate it by art. You listen to the music, translate it by your movements, and try to make it more smooth as possible,
When you create your act, I know you give us little sequences to do for class and our little numbers. Is that how you were trained as well in the Mongolian style? Does everyone learn kind of the same progression?
Yeah, that one is little bit on my own.
Okay.
Yeah, I come up with lots of my routines and technical routines for my students. I come up with it. But the technical exercises are based on Mongolian traditional contortion. But my routine is I come up with it for my adult students from my experience. The way I trained was same exercises, but it was a little bit different. We used to just hold the tricks a lot, So in pretzel, if you can't breathe, teacher just tell you, until you get used to it, keep holding it little by little, longer and longer. But with adults, it's hard to do because it's first, you can't just change the body, just like the kids are more easier, but adults, it's different. So when I do that routine, you have room to breathe too. Yeah. And then also kids don't have to develop that endurance that much because of their typical young body. Yeah. But adults, you have to build that endurance. Mm-hmm. So it's a different method going on.
I see.
Yeah. The very interesting thing is like the training is like we go through all the technique method the same, but then we don't perform before we graduate, before we polish our act.
This is what I'm wondering too, is like how much of the time you spent when you were training, were you just doing exercises, and how much is it the creation or this dance and art form that you're talking about, where it becomes expression and not just exercises?
Yeah. So we focus on our tricks. They're like based on the levels, yeah? So you get the handstand. It's exactly the same as how I teach. You get the pretzel flexibility first until you get your body muscles used to it. And then you go to your balancing more, and then you go through your harder tricks, each leveled up. During that training, teacher will give you so many movements, still training. It's a separate training, tricks, and then movements.
Okay.
Yeah. And then sometimes she encourages you to take a ballet classes too. And then once you get the tricks, the movement, and teacher will start giving you act, that takes 1 or 2 years to polish and complete that act. Yeah. We really detail it. Every single movement, they will go through it too.
Wow.
So that's why it's we graduate, come out very strong. Here, there is mixed feelings always for me. So sometimes when I teach my adults, even my younger students, I don't want them, if I use the same method how I trained, so I wouldn't let them perform that early. But here, I can't control that either. People perform. But even though sometimes you're not ready, they still do.
How do you know if a student is ready to perform?
No, I have a certain a level, you have to certain handstand, you have to polish the act. At least you get these tricks. Yeah. Make it more okay, that's a nice way to start.
Can you give an example of some of those tricks? What would be a level?
Your pretzel needs to be more fluid, your elbow stand, your handstand. Yeah. I always tell my students, get your handstand before you perform. But sometimes it doesn't work. But because of the aerial artists, sometimes they're already performers. It's hard for them to just focus on training and just go there. I also support start performing early too, because I really think when they start performing, the way they training speed, the way they trying the trick, and the progress gets much more faster.
When they start performing?
Yeah. That's why I really like it,
Okay, yeah.
Because they get inspired more. I think they push themselves more. Yeah. I feel like they have a goal. That's why they start pushing themselves a little bit more instead of just training and training.
Yeah.
And then
I had a Moroccan coach once who told me, I had been at the same place for 3 years, training a lot, and he was like, you have to leave here. It's not good for your head anymore.
Yes.
Because you're not on stage ever. So you have to go and you have to start performing.
Yes, I agree with that too. As adult, it's very different method going on. And especially if mentally, if you give up or if you're not inspired, the adults don't learn. That's period, yes.
Yeah.
So, because you have to really work double the amount, you have to control yourself mentally first.
Yeah.
And then you can push yourself physically. If your mentally is not ready, then physically you can't control,
Totally.
So that's why, most of the time, I become a
psychologist?
Yeah. I feel like
you're like a
therapist. Yeah. So otherwise, they come like so emotional sometimes.
Yeah.
But then sometimes it's like they have so much more control than kids, So you just have to understand, like,
I have a question about this for you. Do you know, like, you were like adults, you're saying they get very emotional sometimes when they're stretching. I wonder, is that a cultural thing that you find more in the U.S. than in Mongolia, or did you ever?
No, like honestly, I haven't really worked in Mongolia adult students.
Okay.
But I really think it's something to do. I'm just in my experience.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, that's all you can speak for.
I think it's emotional because of the adult's lifestyle and that. It's already hard, and then you're challenging yourself to something very extreme. Yeah. And also, if you can control that, I have so many students who's so successful, who really inspired many
We actually
people,
had on one of the very early episodes, I interviewed Inka.
Yeah.
We've had
I love
episode
her,
3. I know, I love her too.
So she's like a pure student. And I really think she's inspiration for so many people.
For sure.
So she did beat that, and she really showed so many people it's possible. You can do it.
This podcast is brought to you by The Artist Athlete. Did you know that The Artist Athlete is more than just a podcast? It's a growing online resource for students of the aerial arts to deepen their journey to badassery by accessing techniques approved by physical therapists and master coaches in the industry. Our current spotlight is on the fundamentals of aerial alignment, a practical manual for hanging upside down. This online manual is a step-by-step guide. It is complete with photos, videos, and exercises that you can implement immediately to help you gain the strength and awareness you need for an aerial practice that promotes shoulder health and longevity and good posture upright, so you don't walk around like a gorilla. But don't just take my word for it. Here's CIRCUS physical therapist Dr. Jen Crane of Cirque Physio to tell you more.
The fundamentals of aerial alignment is an absolute must-have for every aerialist of every level. I can't even tell you how many shoulder injuries I treat that are a direct result of rushing past the basics in an attempt to get a trick too soon. In the manual, Shannon deconstructs the fundamentals, including the correct muscular engagement to safely arrive in these positions and the rationale for why it matters. Of course, in addition to all of these fabulous pearls of wisdom, the book is also ridiculously fun to read. It's been lovingly garnished with the Shannon humor we all know and love.
Thanks, Jen. Cirque Physio is also featured in the book to give scientific insight into why it all works. Pick up your copy today by going to theartistathlete.com and clicking e-manuals. Listeners of the podcast can get a 10% discount by typing in the offer code PODCAST at checkout. Again, that's theartistathlete.com, offer code PODCAST. Now, back to the show. I want to go back to your story because I'm so interested to know. You went to the school, you then joined this Mongolian traditional folk troupe. So when did you come to the U.S.?
I came...
Am I skipping any big parts of the story for you? I don't want to miss a moment.
No, it's okay. I married very early. So I met my husband when I was like 18. And I had my son when I was 19 years old.
Okay.
So after the baby, even though I wanted to, my teacher even wanted me to come back to circus school, and my ensemble wanted me to come back. I got back to contortion. But my husband came to USA to learn English. But after 7 months, he invited me for vacation. I came.
Was he here in San Francisco?
Yeah, he came in San Francisco. And he was already made his mind. He's like, I really love America. I really want to live here. Let's try it,
Okay, so you came for a man.
Yeah, I came for a man. So I was thinking after 2 months or a month over, I would go back, yeah. But then I kind of like decision changed instead. So I was looking for a job. Like before I leave, I would have contacted many people, but here it's like I don't know anybody. Like I heard like some of the stories, like this Las Vegas have some contortionists, Big Apple Circus, Ringling Brothers had some Mongolian contortionists, but I never have any full information about them. And I start looking for a job. You know, like I worked in Europe so many like years, and you just go to theater, you even audition yourself, you do your act, and then you get hired. It's very common back then. Yeah. So
did you go from Mongolia to Europe when you were working?
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
I worked with the National Circus, who separated the mini Cirque, Tour Cirque. So I worked with them 2 years in Germany, in Russia, and Poland. Yeah. So when I worked there, when they go back to Mongolia, I stayed there working with the cabaret shows and big circuses. Yeah. I've done a couple auditions like that too. But then here, it's like people didn't do that. And then I start looking at the yellow page. Yellow page, and I start looking some agencies, you know, maybe if I can send my videotape, they can hire me. Like, that's how I looked work. But nobody really responded. Maybe they maybe think I'm some crazy lady. But after 7 months, I I even worked in coffee shop too. I was like looking for a job, you know. But my husband didn't want me to. I quit. He's like, you can't just do this, you know. So I contacted through my friend to Otko Walter, who's in Las Vegas, contortionist, and also she's a very famous teacher now and still performing though. So I contacted her and she's like, oh my God, like why you didn't tell me? You came here so early. You should have contacted me, you know. And that's how she found me. Back then, now it's a Dream Cirque, but back then it was a Cirque Ingenue. So I started working with that company and I toured the USA and Mexico. And then I come back because I miss my son so much. My son was so young, you know. So that tour was just my breaking point. Like I don't know, like I used to enjoy tour.
Yeah.
But that tour was very hard for me. Like I miss my son, my husband, and it was just like a struggle for me. Like every day I will look at the calendar and I wanted to go home, you know.
Yeah.
So, and then after that we decided to take our son, and when he come here, I start working more local, like a corporate shows. And if they have, like the Cirque Ingenue have corporate shows, I will do it. Here and there, I used to do tour shows, but not long anymore. And then I don't know, like that's how I performed for many years here.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
And then you started teaching at the Circus Center.
Yes.
Back when it was, I interviewed Veronica Blair recently, and we were talking about the Circus Center back when Louis was teaching a lot, and there was like that.
It was
culture.
like Otko came here for like a TV show. And then that's how she wanted me to watch her daughter while she's shooting video. So that's how I entered Circus Center. And then I met everyone, the directors and the teachers, and also the Velocity Cirque, the Greg Angelo.
Yeah.
Like everyone I met, and they just suggested me to work there. And I start performing first, and then I start teaching here and there. I don't know, like since when I was little, I used to get very attracted to teaching, you know. I just always enjoyed, like when I was back in Mongolia, I already had my students already graduated. I started teaching when I was 15, 16 years old. And when I came here, I already had 4 girls already graduated who's performing, touring, you know. So I just loved teaching, and I started scheduling some classes at the Circus Center. So I thought I was expecting kids, little girls would come and take a class. Yeah. But I had like 18 years old girl, one girl only. She came and I really thought, oh, maybe she just misunderstands the class type, So maybe she entered the wrong class. I even told her, maybe you got the wrong guy. And she's like, no, your name is Serchmaa, right? You're contortionist. And I signed up for your class, and can you just check me? Do you mind if I can just show you, So I watched her and I just like, oh my God, her name is Amber. So she's my very first American student.
Oh, Ember was your first American student?
Yes.
So you got this 18-year-old Ember. Did you just say, okay, well, I guess I'll train you as if you were one of my students?
No, after she showed me all her training, I just really attracted her back, how flexible it is.
Okay.
And then I just wanted, I don't know, like there was no word, I just wanted to teach.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
nice.
like no question. Like before I had, right? I was like, oh, it needs to be certain age. And like, I was telling her, maybe your age is like 18. I'm not sure, So, but then after I watched her, I really wanted to teach. And she worked with me like 3 years, maybe over.
Yeah, nice.
And then she started performing, and she's very beautiful.
Do you ever get students who you're like, I can't do anything with you?
Honestly, like, I never did that to any of my students. Even some of my students, like, questioned me too, like in during my class too. Because, you work so many different people. People have their own ideas, and sometimes they don't understand how I feel about this art. They come up with the stories, and then it's like, why you teach? Like, it's like, she's obviously, even Nobu, have you met Nobu? Like, he's a very beautiful Japanese ballet dancer who entered our aerial program back then when I used to teach contortion program, aerial program together. Yeah. I used to teach with Elena. And then he entered that as aerialist, but he interested to contortion more, and he changed it into contortion second year. And he's now such a beautiful contortionist, So even when I was working with him, some of the students will question me. Like, obviously he's like very tight, they say. And why are you teaching contortion? I don't think this is possible. But my goal is like, you don't have to do triple fold. Everyone doesn't have to do that. That's not the standard we're looking for. But we're looking for how to make this art related to your creation. And how can you translate it by your talent, by your creation? That's always my goal when I work with my students. Because they all have their unique talent. They all have their own creations, right? So sometimes it doesn't work, honestly. It's not for everyone who wanted to do. But if you have that passion, if you have that hard work, if you really, really focus on it, it's not an impossible thing. And then I've seen so many people create their art so beautifully, that's like all I care. That's why I really never really said to no to anyone. Even like a 60-year-old lady came to me and she wanted to learn split. That in her own world, that is her goal. That's her creation. She's not asking me to put me on stage, do like contortion with me, And I really want to challenge their own imagination and inspiration. And sometimes it doesn't work. Most of the time it works. And I love watching that.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I'm sure people will really like to hear that too.
Yeah, it's like, it inspires me. That's why, even though I still train at home, but not in like a contortion performing level training. I still practice.
Well, I have almost out of time.
Okay.
But my last question that I always ask is what advice would you tell yourself at the very beginning of your career or the beginning of your journey?
Myself.
Yeah, to yourself.
It's not like it's a regret.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's a regret. I wish when my teacher asked me to come back to the circus school, I wish I went back. That's the only, I didn't.
After you had your son?
Yeah, so I didn't go back. So that's the only regret. But
what do you think would have happened if you had gone back?
Like I would have made my teacher's wish, because she always she even spoke with my mom, said like she loved me. And then she sent me to the tour show, but then they took me too long. She never really created that act or that goal she was planning with me, So maybe it would have happened.
Yeah.
So that's the only regret I have. But everything else, I wouldn't change anything.
Awesome. Oh, what does your mother think now?
Oh, my mom passed away 12 years ago.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah. But it's, I don't know, like she always inspired and she always loved because I remember she told me, like, she trained hard, she learned lots, but she never became a professional contortionist. So when she watches my act, she says, "You completed my wish."
Wow.
And I see you performing it. Just she loved it. Yeah, she used
That's
to be
really
very
special.
happy.
Wow. Well, thank you so much for this interview. It's really nice.
Thank
We
you
so
so
appreciate
much.
it. Thank you, Serchmaa. That was my interview with Serchmaa Byamba. Right after I turned off the tape, Serchmaa reminded me that she had started this whole interview by telling me a story about how she got to perform with her idol in Mongolia. So I grabbed my recorder, I turned back on the tape, hooked up the microphones again, and we finished the interview with that. If you want to hear the very last little part of how Serchmaa came full circle from seeing her idol on TV to being with her idol on TV, you can go to patreon.com/theartistathlete. If you pledge $5 a month or more, that clip is waiting for you. It's a really great, inspiring story. The key takeaway that I wanted to share with you all, and I think Serchmaa wanted to share with you all by coming on the podcast, was her outlook on Mongolian contortion. Serchmaa speaks about contortion being different from other circus arts because it's rooted in cultural traditions. In fact, before 1990, the communist state government of Mongolia actually funded programs to train up contortionists as cultural exports. There are even records of nomadic women shooting arrows with their feet and men doing contortion movements in the countryside. And it's so interesting because when she talks about it being an art, she's also alluding to a spiritual aspect of contortion. She refers to monks chanting and people engaged in meditation while they're doing these contortion poses and movements, which makes me wonder how relevant the hashtag not yoga is. After all, they are on the same continent. And even Serchmaa, who started at a very young age and advanced to an incredibly high level, talks about how a person who just wants to learn how to do a split is actually kind of doing contortion, because in their mind, getting to that point, finding that flexibility, is a part of their expression of who they are as an artist. And I really thought that that was such a beautiful and poignant thing for such an advanced practitioner to express. So I hope you all heard that too. If you want to find out more about Serchmaa or train with her, she does take students and she's in the San Francisco area. You can contact her via Instagram, TS_SERCHMAA, TS_Serchmaa, or on Facebook, Serchmaa Byamba. And as for me, I will be teaching at the Acronomata Festival this weekend in lovely Puerto Viejo, Costa Rica, and next week at the Muse in Brooklyn, New York. And then the week after that you know what? Follow me on Instagram at @the_artist_athlete, or on Facebook, The Artist Athlete, or on my website, theartistathlete.com. And you will get all of the workshop information as to where I'm recording my podcasts and giving lessons next. If you like what you're hearing, subscribe, rate, and please leave a review on whatever platform you listen on. It really does help people find the podcast, and tell all your friends. All right, guys, I'm going to go hit the beach. Next week on the podcast, legendary clown and Ringling Brothers director Steve Smith will be on the podcast. It's going to be an amazing show. Make sure you tune in. I'll talk at you then. The Artist Athlete podcast is supported solely by donations from people like you. Here's what some of those people have to say.
Hey there, friends, fans, and enemies. This is Chris Alston, Patreon of the Artist Athlete podcast. Straps artist and lyra performer and acrobat out of Greenville, South Carolina. So, if you're ever passing through, make sure to stop in and see me and my friends. We have a wonderful space, and we'd love to see you.